お願いします。お願いします。All right, let's do some warm-up motions. So far away from the camera. Make sure the knee is in the frame of the foot. Wherever the foot goes, the knee comes with it. Reverse. If you can't reach the floor, you can just go like this. Just make sure your bottom is always lower than your head, right? Show you this way. So don't sacrifice like this. Make sure your bottom is lower. You're keeping that integrity of the spine. If that's only this far, then so be it. Right? But use your hips to initiate the motion. It's no good to just do this. Use your lower body. And if you can sink down. Okay. Well, let's take that a little bit further into this stretch. You can put this down, or you can use like this, whatever's easier for you. Again, attending to that knee and the frame of the foot. You circle the knees, keep that pelvis low, spine engaged, and keep the foot connected to the ground so that your ankles are mobilized. So don't do something like this, right? Stick to the floor. Now imagine you've got a ball and you come over to this leg, your weight over here, like you're gonna catch the ball here, come over here, come over here. All right, reach, and relax. reach. Helps to inhale as you first reach, but then go ahead and exhale and inhale and exhale, opening up your ribs. One side and the other. Imagine someone's got hold of your arms and is just pulling you up, pulling you up. Don't hold your breath. Keep breathing. And loose, supple, supple in the knees. Look up. Keep the neck long. Look down like you're looking over the cliff. Keep the neck long. Look up and watch that bird go through the sky above, over your head. So you kind of lean back a little bit and find your spine. Open up in the chest. And then look out over the cliff. All right. This time, keep the neck long and turn to the left, just moving your head, looking over your shoulder, back to center, over the other shoulder. This time, bring your shoulders up toward your ears and drop. This time, rotate the shoulder, bring it forward, then up toward your ear, toward the back, down, sink your shoulder blade down into your back pocket, that feeling. Lowest point here, and forward. Just find those 4 points clearly, and then gradually make this gentle kind of circle. But as you make the circle, be sure to peg each station. When you get to this point, the shoulder is far away from the ear, sinking down, dripping heavy, and then forward, and it starts to come up. And as you do this movement, can you allocate a little bit of your attention to what's going on the other side? Are there little extra movements happening over here? Are you keeping it rigid? Does it kind of just move a little bit with this? You don't have to change it, but just notice what's going on the left. Well, this is the left half of my body. This is my right shoulder. And change direction. So if you've been coming forward, down, and then back, go back, down, and then forward. And then up, hold, and drop. Just notice if your one shoulder feels different than the other. And I feel a little bit like this. Now let's go to this side. First, just come up towards your ear and drop. And then sink down like you're reaching down toward your knee and let it drift back. Bring the shoulder forward and return. Take it back. Feeling of drawing your shoulder blade toward your spine and return. And then softly mark each of those directions and then circle. Not too fast. Take your time and savor the motion. Reverse direction. And notice what's going on the other side of your body as you're mobilizing this side. What kind of small movements are happening on the other side? All right, now as this shoulder comes forward, let's actively take this one back. And when this one goes back, actively take this one forward. Let's do the circle. Pause and reverse. It's okay if your spine moves. Feel that motion in your thoracic spine, maybe some movement in your hips. All right. Both together like you're taking off a sweater. And then the opposite direction. Sink down, close the chest. Expand your back. So when we do jaw movement, you want a kind of suppleness and range of motion up above in the chest and spine and shoulders. You want an ease up there, and then a good connection to the ground below. So lots of shoulder stretches and mobilization is going to help your jaw work. So just put the jaw at the back. There's a nice little opportunity to kind of massage the back of your neck near the base of the skull right there. If you've been working on the computer for too long or using your eyes in a way that's tiring, you can massage these little muscles at the base of the skull. Feels really good. All right, and then let it set kind of more on your shoulders. Comfortable kind of spot here. Might be down here, might be up here, but you want it soft because we're going to mobilize. So this is my right hand. I'm going to take the right end of the jaw and bring it down and forward and up and back, drawing a little circle. And my attention is on the right side. But because the jaw is rigid, it's going to move the left side, right? The left side is moving in a passive way. But my attention is on the right. You could say the right side is driving the motion, and the left side is like a passenger. It's just going along with. I'm actively bringing it back and down and forward and up again, and find that movement. And as you're driving the right side, now take your mind, there's a way we kind of look and we bring our attention to the right side. This is the side I'm driving, I'm paying attention to. But now keep this going and bring your attention gradually over to the left side. So even as you're driving the right, you're gradually sneaking up on watching, observing what's going on with the left. Still driving from the right. And it may even help to turn your head and look at your right, and then gradually move your head to center. Notice what's going on in your spine, and then start to drift your attention over to the left. And just observe how the left is moving passively, even as you're driving the motion from the right side. Now observe that left side and just imagine the left side taking over the motion. It's like you're going to pass the steering wheel over to the left side, but imagine it first. Just see the movement of the left as a passenger, And then gradually, slowly hand that steering wheel over to the left side and let the left do the driving. See if the right can give up control. Let the right embrace the idea of being a passenger now, and the left is going to take over the motion. It may not look any different from the outside, but you're drawing a circle. Drawing a circle. There's a little subtle motion in your chest. If you put a little laser on your sternum, what design would it be making? What movement is happening there? How about movement in the spine, between your shoulder blades? All right, now kind of like a bicycle, you can pedal with the right to come forward, it's driving, and now the left is gonna push to come forward. So you're passing that steering wheel back and forth now. The right drives when it pushes forward, and then the left drives when it pushes forward. A little bit like pedaling a bicycle. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. All right, now let's pedal backwards. Pedal backwards. So there's a sense of 50-50. Both halves of your body are working half the time and being a passenger or passive half the time. All right, feel how that motion is in the center of your chest, your spine, and now try to drive it from your center line. Somewhere deep in the middle of your chest, your spine, that's where you're driving the motion from. All right, and then drop that steering wheel down into your hip. Can you drive the whole motion from your hip now? There's a little bit of a counterbalance, right? As my right hip comes forward, there's a sense of the left going back. Boom, boom. Exaggerating a little bit for the camera, but you can feel it within. All right, can you take it right down to your feet, like you're surfing or skateboarding? You're pressing through your feet to create this motion that just travels right up your body, up to the shoulders, pressing from your feet, driving or steering from your feet. Pause and reverse the motion. How do you do that from your feet? All right. I'm going to take the top hand and pull. Now my left arm, my lower arm is passive, and the top hand is driving, bringing that arm up your back. Relax and stretch. And then let it go. Now the lower hand's going to drive. It's going to pull down, and the upper arm is going to be stretched. Now, change it up. So my top arm is going to pull the lower arm up my back. See if you can touch the stick with the back of your head. And then let that go. And now my lower arm is going to pull the jaw down and stretch the upper arm. And you may find a difference left and right. Big difference for me. Right, my left. This whole idea of kind of passing the who's driving and who's the driver and who's the passenger is something that comes up again and again in our Aikido. How do you activate one side, let the other side move with. And when both halves of you are trying to be the driver at the same time, you get a kind of a wobble, and you get a excessive tension and a kind of reciprocal action that works against you. You could make use of that in certain kinds of stretching and strengthening exercises. But for example, in shihonage, you want this hand to be a passenger. You want this one driving and taking that fuel from the ground, right? But if this one is trying to be the driver, then you might get this kind of effect, this type of thing, right? Or even if they're both trying to drive at the same time, it's too rigid. So if you want the suppleness, you want to just cultivate that kind of attention to what part of me is actively recruited, what is driving the motion, and what part is going along for the ride, being soft and supple and relaxed. And we change it up all the time. I might send the weapon forward and hold it very softly on the way, but then close down to stop the weapon. So thinking about bokken work, right? You send it initially with this left hand. During its trajectory, you want to be holding it softly, like holding a bird or an egg. Then at the end, squeeze a moment. So it shifts time and again. So these warm-ups are good warm-ups for weapons work. All right, let's do a little bit on the mat, since we have the mat here. From 4 points, find can you do this? Or yeah. So your hand underneath your shoulder and your knee underneath your hip. Look, my knee is forward of my hip. My knee is behind my hip. So you want the knee, if you just drop the plumb line from your hip down, that's where your knee is. What about the feet? My feet are inside my knees. Now they're to the outside. I want to line them up so they're right behind the knee, directly behind the knee. Can you sense whether your foot, how can I show you here, whether your heel is kind of going to the outside or coming to the inside? Just do it on purpose for a moment and feel that little stretch through your toes. How clear is it to you when your heel is to the outside versus the inside versus lined up directly behind your knee? Right. Check it out on the other side too. And as you do that motion, can you feel small changes in the contact of your knee with the mat? Feels a little different when my heel is to the outside. If I bring my heel to the inside, well, now the pressure is different on my knee. So that can make a big difference in motions like suwari waza, right? When people do something like this and they're pressing through, if this goes to the outside, that changes where the pressure is on the knee. All right. So working with the shoulder again, I'll try an angle like this. Working with the shoulder again, go palm up and send your arm through. See if you can slide down and kind of relax into your shoulder and find that stretch. Look at your hand and then gradually look up at the ceiling like you're looking up over your shoulder. And what do you want to do with the standing hand? You could press through that hand and draw the shoulder blade back toward your spine to help you look up at the ceiling, up overhead. And then when you think about coming out of it, what are you going to do first? Are you going to push through this hand? Is there something you do in your core to draw that hand out? Now this time, let's do similar movement, but palm down. Bring the palm down through and feel the difference. What's happening in your shoulder and your chest now? And if you let up just a little bit, see if your fingers can draw your shoulder through just a little bit more. And bring it back. Let's try this on the other side. We'll try this angle this time. So first time, palm up, slide it through, follow, your eyes follow your hand. You can adjust where this hand is so you can settle down. And this time, palm down, slide through, creep through with your fingers. And hand dives down to the opposite foot. Look through and past your armpit. You're looking through the loop of your arm and armpit. And out of it, reach to the outside of your knee, as if you were going to grab your foot, the outside of your knee. And on the other hand, dive down to the opposite foot. Breathe out of it, and then reach to the outside of your knee. All right. This time, find your feet behind your knees and press just enough to lift your knees momentarily, like you're just going to slip something under your knees. And then notice how you do that, what's involved in making that motion. And then from there, walk forward and return. Walk forward and return. Watch you for a moment. Good. Now imagine you've got a baby sitting on the small of your back. Balance the baby and don't let them fall off. Can you keep your lower back nice and flat, nice flat surface for the baby or the kitten to not fall off your back. Good. Yeah, if you have more space, you can walk around like a bear. But it's a good exercise for kind of organizing the muscles around the core in such a way that your arms and legs can be free. Okay, let's move on to more Joe exercises. We're at the halfway mark. And I might just turn the camera a little bit to make good use of our line. All right. So some of the initial exercises I do with Joe is to help people orient to the Joe. Maybe the same length all the time, but we're different day to day. So just hold the two ends. Imagine you're going to collapse the Joe to the center. So I'm pressing this way with this hand. I'm pressing this way, pressing into my hands. Feel the Joe and release. Here and release. And then slide to the middle. Palm up. Try it the other way. Palm down. All right, back to palm up. This time, go a little bit off center and feel how the weight drips down. It's light on this side and heavy on that side. You know it intellectually, but your nervous system is going to really experience it. So you go a little bit off center. Feel that weight and drop. All right, and then come right to the center. Feel the evenness, how it balances so easily. Kind of a lightness or weightlessness when you're right in the center. All right, and with one hand, I'm just going to extend my arm out and gently turn. So this helps you find the rotation available in your elbow, where the radius comes into the ulna there, and then a little bit of rotation in the shoulder. But feel it here. It's a small but important joint for rotation of your rotating your wrist in space. There's kind of a natural stopping point, right? Stop, stop. Feel that. That may be a little different day to day. And then when you find that stopping point, then allow a little bit more in the shoulder. See if you can make it a sequence. So you get all you can out of this, and then you feel this. How about this direction? You get all the rotation here, find that stopping point, and then just a little bit more. How do you get just a little bit more? It may not be just in the shoulder, right? But something you do in your hip, something you do in your spine to get that little extra motion. Feel it here. And then feel how you get a little extra. All right, this time, purposely drive it from your hip. So I'm going to take this hip back for this movement. I'm going to take this hip forward. I get this motion. Bloom, bloom, bloom. Don't put too much torque in your elbow. Feel what your range is. What can you do without injuring yourself? All right, other side. So I'm at arm's length, gently turning. I just feel how my elbow is today. Connect well to the jaw here. Don't twirl it in your hand. Connect your whole hand to the jaw right in the center. Feel that rotation. What do you feel going on in your shoulder? And then come to that stopping point and then get just a little bit more. Turn this way, find the natural stopping point, and then activate hip and spine to get just a little bit more. And then drive it from the hip, and drive it from the hip. All right, now let's do our, sometimes I think of it as a kayaking exercise. We're dipping your oar into the water on this side, turn it in the water, then turn your hip to bring the oar over to the other side of your boat, dip it in the water, turn it, turn it. Make sure your oar doesn't hit your boat, right? It goes in the water on this side, it goes in the water on that side, and drive the motion from the hip. Your hand stays in front of you. All right, look at the difference between this, it's all arm, and keeping this connected. You could hold a little tanuki or towel or something under your armpits. The armpit stays closed, but the hip is well mobilized. And what's happening with your knee? Can you keep the knee in the frame of your foot even when you're rotating? Or is it wobbling now? And keep that knee safe. You want to be able to turn your hip sharply while still keeping your knee solid in the frame of the foot. Now let's reverse the motion. So those of you familiar with gyaku keisa, there's like a gyaku keisa moment there. Blip. Don't whack yourself. Don't go too fast, especially if this is new for you. There's that gyaku keisa moment. Hip and the weapon, and then drop. You've got to be supple and soft here. Bring this tip up. Opposite kind of figure 8 motion. All right, let's go to the other side. So the familiar way first, for those of you who've done this before, I'm going to put my oar into the water here, turn my hip, spin it parallel to the boat, then turn with your hip, not your arm, but your hip, brings it to this side, put it into the water, turn it. So I've got to sink a little bit here, keep the knee in the frame of the foot, sink down so you get good hip rotation. Turn your hip to come to this side. Turn your hip to come to this side. Okay. Watch this motion. Try to keep it level. Keep your epaulets flat and level. Take care of your knee. Don't let it wobble. Good. My weight is mostly forward, but still well connected in the back. You want good hip rotation. Sink down a little bit to get more range of motion. Can you turn your hip a little bit more rather than depending on the arm? You could practice this, putting a little, like a washcloth or something under your armpit. See if you can, don't drop it. Keep it softly closed. All right, now we'll practice the opposite way. You could think of a gyaku keisa on the wrong side here. Opposite side. Hips doing the driving. Arms supple. Right here, there's a suppleness right here to allow that tip to come up. Don't whack yourself in the head. All right. Let's quickly do a little series based on ikkyo, nikkyo, sankyo, shihonage, and kotegaish. Some of you may already be familiar with this, but just grab your dough in the middle. Imagine ikkyo ukemi. So you're going to grab the dough and give yourself a little bit of a stretch through here, through the arm. What's the angle that you want here to get that stretch? Lengthening my body from the foot to the leg, the ribs, the elbow comes high, sinking into this leg. Okay. I can take it right through the coronal plane, right to the opposite leg here. Something like this. Or I can change the angle a little bit and come back over here for a little bit different stretch. So you can play with the angle. All right, then sink down, let this slide just a little bit so that you can give yourself a little nikkyo. This angle, this angle. All right, so I had ikkyo, this shape. See, the palm of the hand is up toward the ceiling. And now I'm going to bring it down. I've got that Z-like shape. The wrist, look where the palm of my hand is. The thumb is facing that tip far away from me. Let's see. The thumb is oriented down toward the tip by the floor. Yeah. Can you keep the shoulders soft and supple? You can give yourself a nikkyo down here. You can bring it up here, right? Really get that V shape. See, how can I show you? Kind of like that. Just trying to show different angles here. Nikkyo this way, nikkyo that way. If I'm in the middle of the jo, then I'm using this like a lever to give myself a little stretch through the wrist. If you bring it, sometimes you'll see it done like this. We use the ground in here and bring it down like that. Same shape. All right, right now the wrist is flexed, right? It's bent at an angle. Now I'm going to unravel it so it's flat, it's neutral, right? And bring it down here. Now I'm going to give myself a lever this way for a bit of a sankyo. So for sankyo, you don't want your wrist, you don't want it flexed like this. That's all right for nikkyo. You want it neutral. And then it's going to end up being just a little bit extended. Neutral, slight extension, but not flexed. Here, put it against your body. Have it over here. A little bit higher, but don't crunch up your shoulder. There's a certain suppleness in the arm, shoulder, chest when you can bring it right down here. And I'm taking this hand and driving it back. Good. All right, here's the tricky one. We're going to go from sankyo to shihonage. So I'm going to spin this. Goes down and up and overhead without whacking myself in the head. And just to the outside of my shoulder so that I can grab this. I'm going to have a little bit of purchase here on the outside of the elbow. I can give myself a little shihonage stretch. And you can activate the spine a little bit, look up toward the ceiling. And then your eyes look down, your spine comes, and then the arm releases. See if you can keep the grip now. We're going to let this point of contact slide down toward the wrist for kotegaeshi. Get a little closer to the camera to show how that is. So we're here, basically. Then it comes down. It's going to slide. I let it slide down my arm till there's a point of purchase down here, close to the wrist, but still on the bone there. This is the radius, right? Here's the thumb, kotegaeshi. Now I can have that out in front of me here. I can be a little bit over here, a little bit over here. Slightly different. Now there's almost a sense of pulling up on this lever to give myself kotegaeshi. Right? Let's shake it out. Isn't that fun? All right, so let's see if we can go through the other side silently. I'll try to keep changing angles so the camera can see from different vantage points. Okay. As we move through the month, we'll do shorter warm-ups and more forms. But for today, I want to do a lot of conditioning with the jo. So let's look at sampo, the 3 strikes. Ski, shomanuchi, and kesa, sometimes called yokomanuchi if the attack is to the head. And the angle is slightly different. So for ski, we're going to start from jo kamai. In jo kamai, I'm in hamni position, and the jo is right in front of my foot. You could think of it as being in front of the second toe or in front of the knee, almost like you're hiding behind the jo. It's going to be your shield, jo kamai. Try not to jam the tip into the ground, but keep it a little bit off the ground and in front of your knee. Right? Good. So for ski, I'm going to use this hand to just draw it right down to my hip. So the tip is going to go very efficiently from here to ready position. Make sure it doesn't go up and then down. Make sure it doesn't go way out here and then to here, right? You don't want something like this. It just efficiently goes from here, point A, to point B, right? This is a little bit of a fulcrum here, and this one cuts to your hip. Use the little and ring finger. I like to sink down a little bit. Feel how you can shift your weight here. Draw the jo through your hand. So in this case, the back hand is the driver. It's sticky. It's grabbing the jo. This one has to be light, slidey. So it has to be more of the passenger type role, passive, active. Draw it through all the way to the end. Feel the 2 ends. Sink down. Feel the ground to that back leg. You're going to push off the back leg and slide forward. So jo kamai, sink down a little bit, cut to your hip, draw it through, find the ground to that back leg and slide forward. The target could be kind of a chudan level here, center, or here. It could be the sternum, it could be the throat, it could be the just under the nose, very dangerous. So different ways to think of this attack is up. I'm going to think of just keeping it level right here. Here. Camera angle is a little bit strange, sort of a fisheye wide angle here. So for this exercise, just try and keep it level to the ground. Here, draw it through, light here, slide, level. Yeah. As I finish, I'm just going to bring lots of different ways to do this, but I'm just going to bring my hand around my body. My arm comes to my body. My hand is here. The jo is level. This is palm up. This is palm down. Very simple kind of thrust. Now I'm going to grab it with the left hand here, my forward hand, release with this hand, and walk to the front of the jo. My back hand is going to adjust a little bit, and I'm ready to thrust on this side. I'm going to run out of room really quick. So one important thing about this, this motion, this sampo exercise, is that once I start, the jo only goes forward. Don't pull it in again. It's there, you walk around it, and you keep it going forward. Keep it going forward, right? So that's a little different than, look at the difference between, here I've got to draw it back, I can go forward, and then I could take this back to go forward. That's a different type of exercise, right? I could go forward and then take it back and step forward. But for this exercise, I want to have that sense that the jo just keeps going forward. It never goes back. Here, draw it first, ski. Now, I don't want it to go back at all. I'm going to leave it here. I'm going to walk around it and send it forward. Yeah. So supple 3 times. I don't know if I have enough room here. 1, I'll make small movements. 2, 3. One. When I step around, be careful you don't just take it wide, right? Let your hip turn. My knee and my foot are coming forward. Don't let them wobble around. So turn your hips, sink a little bit. This foot passes this foot closely. Here. When I come to this side, the hip is going to turn. That knee and foot are oriented to come forward, and the whole thing is going to happen in a narrow hallway. Boom. So when we think of making a motion out here, sometimes people take a wide, sweeping type of motion. Or the other thing that can happen is the knee and foot sort of wobble the way forward. Some people have a way of bringing their foot forward a little quicker than their knee. I've really worked on trying to keep the knee and the foot to move together. So take care of your knee, hip, knee, foot, hip, knee, foot. Yes. All right. Now going backwards, we have a little different strategy. I mean, it's an exercise, right? So we keep it compact, but in this case, you are going to take it back with you. It's going to go with this hip. So the hand at the end is the one that lets go. Bring it back with you, and then ski forward. So you can think of making an adjustment in my eye so that you can come forward. Let's look at it this direction. So I've come here. The one at the end is the one that lets go. Turn your hip, step back. There's a little adjustment of the back hand here so that you can thrust forward. The one at the end of the jo lets go. The jo and the hip move together. And make sure the weight shift and the strike are matched. They're connected. Yeah. Here, and I adjust my hand back to the end before I come forward. It's a little weird to do short, slow motion here. But going backwards, if I'm on this line here, I'm going to come to this side of the line for the strike, then this side of the line, and then this side of the line. It's a very narrow hallway, but you want a sense that that jo, it's just floating right along the line. Here, here, or forward. Very narrow, not over here, close to the line, so that the jo is on the line, but it's also very close to my body. Don't get caught like this. Yeah, good. Let's see, arc. Ski, forward and back. So let's go forward. I'm gonna cut to here, scoot down a little bit. Yeah, and let go with this hand. Come to the other side and ski forward. Good. Let go with that hand at the end. And find the ground to your back foot. Yeah. All right. So now I'm your mirror. We're going to go back. This one lets go. Turn and skeet forward. Which hand lets go, step back, skeet forward. Which hand lets go, step back. Yeah, and when you do that ski, you step back to get in position, but when you ski forward, actually move your body. Make sure you're not doing something like, right? You adjust your position and then find the ground to that back leg so you can push off. All right, so that's ski, sampo, forward and back, 3 steps forward, 3 steps back. Let's do shihonage. Different ways to get started on this. So one way is to do a motion like this to get started. Some people just start from here. I like this one to get started, but for today, let's just start from here. So you've got, think of this as like a tail in the back, right? And the end of your jaw is going to come up. It's going to draw this half round circle and end up over here, right? So if you think of it, there's this, I think of like the half round molding, right? Flat on one side, it's going to go up and over. Or another way to think of it is the sun comes up, it's high noon, and ends in the west. So you have a tail here. This hand just goes from your center to the top of your head, this front hand, right? So it's not out here, it's in front of your belly, this hand. That one, yes. So it goes right up to the top of your head. Step forward, strike. Now draw it through, all the way through to give yourself a new tail. Your front hand is in front of your belly, comes right up your spine to the top of your head and over the top. Now, let's look at it this direction. I start here with my tail behind. This hand comes right to the top of the head. It follows the spine. And then I'm going to turn my hip, step forward, and send this hand forward all at once. Send it back, give yourself a new tail. Front hand is in front of the belly, comes right up the spine to the top of the head. Turn your hip, step, and bring it forward. Yeah, that's the idea. So now going backwards, I've got to give myself a tail, come up to the top of my head. And now I'm going to turn my hip to step back. There's kind of a counterbalance going, right? As the weapon comes forward, you are stabilizing it in the back. What's the timing on that? It's interesting. I can't do it, I can't have my leg floating in the air at the moment that I would strike through. That's going to be unbalanced, torque something. So you've got to work on the timing so that this hip going back gives you some propulsion going forward. There's like a relationship here, but the back foot has got to find the ground before you would cut through your target or hit your target, right? So look at that timing of turning the hip, weight going back, finding the ground so that you can make good use of your hip at the moment that you strike. Here, here, here. Again, my weapon is on my reference line. I'm turning and bringing your body just barely off that line. So my back hip is behind the front hip. I'm in a good hominy position. Not too much this way, but not too much this way either. On the hip behind the hip, foot behind the foot. Nice 60-degree angle. It's we're still working the fishbone model or analogy. Here, here. Whoops, sorry. There. All right, let's go forward. Find a space where you can take 3 steps forward. Up, over, down. Give yourself a new tail. Up, over, down. Slide it back, up, strike. Slide it back, up, strike. Going backwards, up, step back to strike forward. Send it back, up to the top of your head, and strike forward as you step back. Find the ground, use of the hip, good connection through the foot. Woohoo! So we're actually at time, but let's go through Kesa quickly, and then we can work on it more. We're right at the beginning. So if you think of that fishbone shape, you're going to step up, take the hip back. You're going to step up and take the hip back. I'm on one side of the line, then I'm on the other side of the line. But it's all in a very narrow hallway. I'm going to draw this up, slide the backhand so it can twirl over the top of my head, and strike. Let's make the target the temple of the head, side of the head. So your tip is high. Yes, good. And I'm going to lever that up to the top of my head and step to the other side, sliding this backhand. Turn it as you turn your hip. Set the back foot. Make sure it's connected to the ground at the moment that you would hit your target. You might want to start here and go this way to kind of match me. Would that be easier? I'm changing my hands each time so that it's a very symmetrical exercise. Yeah, you got the basics of it. It'll get more fluid, but that's fine. You've got to establish the dots before you connect the dots. So it's very good. Okay. Well, thank you for letting me keep you just a couple minutes late so we could finish those 3. Let's bow. Domo arigatou gozaimasu. Domo arigatou gozaimasu.